I don't call this one to order, do I? It's just a subcommittee meeting, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, it's the inaugural Community Engagement Committee of the board. So I think the purpose of this meeting obviously is to try to, from the board's perspective, determine how this committee is, what the ground rules are going to be for this committee and its engagement with the community. And, to that end, I think we've all thought about independently. And I think that we're here to sort of share our ideas. And I know Bill sent over some information from some other communities and other municipals that have done something like this in different parts of the country to serve as guides to us if we wanted to, follow anything that they had done previously or not. I don't know that anyone else has had an opportunity to review what Bill sent yet. I have looked at it some, and it's very instructive. So thank you, Bill, for sending that. But I think maybe we can take a step back. I think, Jeff, you've had some thoughts on sort of where you would like to see this committee go from a ground rule perspective. And, let's just start, talking amongst ourselves and formulating sort of what our ideas are.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the easiest way. And then I don't see it having to be a very super detailed plan. I think that we just need the basic guidelines, like I said, it's going to be the who, what, when, where, and why. We know the why. The why is to improve our community engagement with the residents of our city and the possibility of even spreading it off into commercial and industrial, although industrial already has, a large, your large commercials, industrial already getting seen more, or at least, noticed more because of the volume of their business, and it's understandable, but how do the residents, and so to me, we know why is to improve our engagement, but who, I mean, we know that the who is going to involve this committee, and it can also involve, additional board members as they deem it appropriate to attend and not attend. It's not required because the committee will still, come up with what we've heard and bring this information back to the board as a whole.
Right.
So really the committee needs to be there. And then I think that we're going to have to determine from the community, how do we set the guideline of who and how they'll, each group will assign a specific representative to speak and everything, for them, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, I'm just a one-off person. Well, that's what the board meeting is for. They can come to the board meeting and they have their 5 minutes, and then we can, they can give their name if they want to talk to a board member, they have their own individual board member. To me, this is more about groups that have like concerns or issues that, each one, it may have one or more issue that they want addressed. And there may be 10, 20, 50, 100 people in this group that are all looking for these issues to be addressed and, as they can be. So I think that's what it's for. It's those kind of groups but I think that when we go to have our actual meetings with the community, it can't be just an open format meeting where every single person in that group speaks, because it ends up being the same thing that we have during our comment section, where there's a lot of redundancy and it's just not as fruitful as it can be. So I think that.
Now, I imagine this as like a committee with different people from different areas of the community representing their community or a section of that community, because I don't think we could have, I can't remember the name of our group. I'm sorry, that comes.
Community conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Community action. Conscience
they,
Network.
they need to like send a representative.
Yeah.
Basically. Maybe a church
Yeah.
would like to send a representative, but how we get those people and how we get that number is what. I think Rose and I talked earlier about maybe meeting quarterly.
Yeah, I think the frequency, I'd like to know what we think the frequency should be.
Yeah,
We understand maybe on the front end, we ourselves are gonna have to probably meet more, right? Because we're trying to
yeah,
figure out how this is gonna work.
yeah, we may have to have, monthly or something.
Maybe,
Yeah, until at least, until we
Right.
get the ground rules, but I almost, so step back a little bit and I'll just share my mind, a little bit of my mind with you is, so as I think through this. And I kind of envision a meeting or the prelude to a meeting is that there are different groups and, this would be. At the start, it's going to be a larger number than an ongoing, because I can see this as a committee that this is just a new one of the committees for the PPU board. So going forward in the future, once this first wave of concerns are brought to us, then you'll have groups come and go, they'll rise and fall as their needs, change. So we have to have a nice robust system in place to be able to do it. But at the beginning, I almost think that we almost like soliciting bids, where what we do is we solicit from the different groups that would like to be engaged with this committee, because you can't do them all at once.
I think,
So have each of them like do a bullet point presentation of, here's our concerns that this group, and here's the contact for that group, and it could be a president, vice president, or, the lead, and without going, because some of these may not be formal. So the lead contact, the secondary contact. And then one of those two people we expect would be the one, or it could even be two of them to come into the meeting, to make sure that the message is said completely. But then we take those and the reality is we're not going to be able to, engage every one of them immediately. It's going to be a process time. So as a committee, we're going to have to review these and go through them, and we're going to kind of have to prioritize needs and wants. But, I'm thinking there's going to be some redundancy along in those groups where, if you have this group that's got 3 unique items and the rest of them, are all like this one item is very common through it, we look at what are some of the items that are most commonly said or commonly concerned, listed, and prioritize the groups that have those in them first.
okay, so let's step back for 1 second. So initially, do we only want representatives that are representing residential customer interest?
I think at this point, I think we need to
I'm fine
start
with
with
it.
Yeah, I think we need to start with residential. I think that commercial industrial have other avenues.
I agree.
So that's why I was saying that they get more attention like that, or have the ability to gain more attention. So I think that residential is that's who's voting for us, or the residents.
That's right.
So this is who, as board members, we represent. I know that the businesses and everything are also in our areas and stuff, but it's the people that, that is my first priority, is making sure that we're doing the best interest of the majority of the people in our community, and in my district in particular. And if you take care of the people, then the businesses should succeed, because you're taking.
I could see where a small business owner might.
But he would have the same concerns.
I
as-
agree.
But let's say it's Frank's Diner, okay, and he's on this 4-block area where they have a community group in that area that's been out canvassing and talking to people about it. And Frank's one of the people that's concerned. Well, his problem would probably be listed in that.
Okay.
I think that to start with, at least, we need to put some parameters in it, and when you're doing something like this, you have to tackle the biggest, lowest hanging fruit first.
Yeah, I really feel like we'll probably build as we go, because
Yeah,
It's-
well, once we get it rolling and everything, but
All
that's why I say, if we see this one problem, like, let's say we get 10 groups, okay? And this one problem resonates across 6 of them.
Right.
That's a majority problem.
That's right.
But we need to dive in to decide, because my feeling from this whole thing is not that we're engaging with them to solve the problem. We're required between the board and the utility to solve problems, okay?
Right.
The community is telling us what the problems are,
Mhm.
that what is their biggest concerns. Not every problem can be solved, not every problem is a need, it's some of them are wants. So you can only spend so much money on wants, but the ones where there needs, I mean, I think this committee is the conduit to get those needs back into the forefront on work sessions or on board meetings.
And I have another thing that I see might be a problem, which I think the majority of our people that come to us, I'm guessing, there are renters. And so we can't always solve the problem if we're not talking to who owns the building or and I don't
Yeah,
know
in
how
some
that's gonna
issues.
work, but I feel like that's an issue. I mean, I don't want them to not come because they're not homeowners. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we're gonna be we might be dealing with a ghost that,
Well, I think that in those situations, they still have the ability to come to the podium.
right,
They have an
right,
issue.
definitely.
But I think that if it's like, hey, this group is a rental group, and then you look at their list of concerns, you can go through it and say, I'm sorry, but that's something that has to do with the business, the building owner, and we can't, you are not someone that we can work with through that. That's something you're gonna have to go to the business owner about. But if it has to do with the utilities response to,
Right.
then I think that can be something that.
And most of those, I think, can be put into that category, our response to that.
And I think some of this is just, my hope is that some of these concerns are actually already being dealt with on a day-to-day business. They're just not visible that how we're dealing with them. And it's just, I mean, some of this may be, it's going to be very educational for us as board members and hopefully also as staff. It's like, this is what our community is asking for. We in our minds feel like we know what we would like to see from the utility. And then we have the insight from other people that we've spoken with to kind of paint a picture of what our expectations are of communication from the utility. But is that the way other people, so, it's that whole thing about take a broad snapshot of everybody's desires for communication and then see what we can make a reality, how far you can go down and make it a reality, financially viable, at the end of the day, we're still spending money, the residents' money, so we have to make sure that we're cost aware and do what we can, stretch our dollars and improve our engagement and communication. And to me, engagement is communication back, especially.
What do you see as the size of the group?
Well, that was my next question I think initially my thoughts were, I'd like to see, some small number of representatives, right? 3, 5, something like that, probably no more than 5. And as I looked at what other communities have done, what other communities have done, their groups seem to be larger than that.
Really?
And as one of the
I
larger,
think bigger, well,
I was going to say, we're one of the larger communities in the
Kansas.
country. Not just Kansas.
Okay.
No, this was Bill pulled
Okay.
from other parts of the country as well. And so, I think we have to think about that, right? So maybe my initial thought of, okay, 3, 5, whatever, maybe that's not the right number. I don't know what it is. I'm interested in your guys' thoughts on
Well,
that.
I got a question. So let's look at the meeting. Let's look at how, sorry, I can only focus on a person. Sorry. You're out of you're just an observer now. So let's look at, let's imagine one of the community meetings. Today, we're having a community engagement meeting with community, okay?
Mhm.
So and to be honest, I think that probably 1 hour maybe we could stretch to 1.5 hours for one of those meetings, but I think you have to cap it because everybody could become
do.
frustrated and the attention span,
Right.
is like, because everybody in this, that will be in the room, they have other things, and they have other life issues.
Right.
So would we want that time to be broken up between more than one group at a time? Do we want to meet singularly with groups? Do we want to meet with?
I just want one
Multiple.
group,
at a
Yeah,
time?
I don't want to meet.
See, that's one of the.
Because I think
we need to.
one group that represents everybody. That's what I,
That's, I agree.
Well, everybody in, okay, but let's see how they're, so you have this group.
But there could be 23 groups out there, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think that's efficient for us or the community to have 23 people
No,
doing presentations.
But if we have,
on
but if you
behalf
have
of-
23 groups, it would take us 23 meetings to get through them all.
That's right. And
So that's why, one of the reasons why I said, can we carpool them together, the ones that are like items, and maybe, and I'm getting further down, and I'm hoping this is being recorded, right? Because for notes, because otherwise I'll forget all these thoughts. Somewhere down the road, we're reporting back to these 23 groups. Or at least, let's say 23 groups, and they submit, hey, here's our concerns, each one of them. So we have this list of, here's all these concerns, and guess what? This one right here runs across 17 of the groups. Let's work on that as a board. We bring that to our board and say, hey, this is something that we think that we can tackle fairly reasonably, and it's a legitimate, something that we believe that can be at least, if not solved completely, at least eased. Let's bring it to a work session, so we're moving that one into the committee now, from the committee into the board.
right. But I do think that we have to, in order to be able to actually deal with the volume, right, that potentially we could have, I think we have to your point about giving presentations, I'm not even sure, I'm not saying it's not necessary because I don't know, right? But I think that we have to give some instruction to these folks, however we get this group of whatever that number is. We would like to see your top 3 issues that you would like to see, this
Yeah.
group try to work through
Yeah.
with BPU and get addressed, right? And maybe some of those are similar across all of them.
Mhm.
Hopefully, some of them are. Hopefully, they're not,
and that's what
27 different issues?
for an agenda for.
No.
That's right.
Group meeting.
Well, and then.
Because then we focus, the
Right.
discussion to determine.
Because we have to start with like an agenda. I mean, once we get the group of people, we have to have a focus.
Well, and one of the most important things is at the end, the feedback loop, where after the board has moved it into, into the board, from committee to board, and then we work through it and determine whatever action will end up happening, whether it's no action, or whatever the results are, we need to make sure that we're reporting back to those 23 groups, whether they submitted that issue or not. They need to see that the engagement process is working.
That's right.
All right. And because some of them might be like, well, that wasn't in my top 3, but that was on our list. So I think that's part of the, the feedback, the complete, the give and take on this whole thing is we're asking them to give us the result, give us their concerns, and we're take them to the others and then bring back, the action that was
I
determined.
hadn't really thought that far along. I'm
You give me a
thinking
weekend and I can.
how get the group, how big is the group? How frequently will we meet? How will we organize each meet? That's
No,
my,
and that's
That's
fair.
my thought.
That's fair. So what do you think on the size of the group?
I'd say 12 to 15 max, to me. That's what I think.
So there'll be 3 board members in this, minimum 3 board members in there. Personally, I think we'd want 3 board members and we're gonna want Bill and we'll have to have legal. Okay, so basically, if we look at these chairs and we take it to right there, right here, I think the number of chairs around this table are a good size for this kind of a meeting, because this is more of a brainstorming meeting.
There's 14. I didn't know.
Uh,
I was counting the chairs.
Well, I'm looking at the extras, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So like 8 more people, 8 or 9 more people we could get in here. Is my feel is that I want people to feel like they're at the table with everybody.
Okay, so 8 was your number?
I think that's, I mean, but when you add board members, the 3 board members and legal and Bob and Bill,
And I really feel like maybe another staff member too, that's kind of,
I think that that's what the gallery would be for anybody that we would need, almost like when we have in a, you know, if we know that we're going into a meeting, they'll have a certain topic on it. Because we should know that because we're gonna be pre,
I was just kind
Determining
of thinking of one single staff member to kind of follow along if that's, but
Well, and maybe so,
Yeah.
right? And let's think about that because,
well, I figure if they're all recorded,
yeah.
we just may have to have better printouts of the
Okay.
recordings.
What was your number?
For those, because we'll be using those as notes to work from for future. future.
well, my
were you thinking?
initial, I was like, is it 5, 3 to 5? And I do think that's too small. I don't have any problem with
12 to 15 is too big.
But I like Jeff's thought on, we do want people.
All around the table?
And
Yeah.
frankly, if there's another board member that wants to come, I want them to engage, but that's right, they would be in
Yeah,
gallery.
but they would be, yeah,
That's
I think that it's no different than their auxiliary,
That's right.
and they would have the opportunity to be engaged in it, but the reality is, we're getting down to the brass tacks here.
That's right.
So
No, you're right. So do we think it's 8? Do we think it's 9?
I think 8 or 9, I think we could get 8 or 9 on this table.
You want to play rock, paper, scissors? I'm kidding, Jeff. We already played that, Bill. I don't know if you.
Yeah, this,
Jeff out.
I'm looking at some of the examples that Bill sent and they're 10. Some are 10, some are a little bit more. These two were
Up to 9.
So residential
12.
customers that we have on the electric side are 65,000,
Yeah.
65,000 or thereabouts. I think 10 sounds fair. I mean, really, when you think about it, if we have to squeeze another chair in,
Yeah,
so be it, but
well, we have chair, yeah. So
we
I
can
mean,
push the lawyer off. I'm kidding, and we won't do that.
So 10,
Oh, here he goes. I'm kidding.
I think that you have to cap out and say that this is the maximum that we would have from that
That's right.
meeting, from your group, but understand that the reality is we want 1 or 2 specific presenters to communicate at the beginning of the meeting.
No, we.
No, it'll be open for
People-
everybody. I'm just saying when it starts, I think that as they're telling us,
I think these folks have to select who it is they want to be their representative
Yeah.
to this committee.
right.
Who their advocate is.
and I think of that, let's say it's 10. Or if
Let's say it's
the
10.
10 people that come in,
Mhm.
I think that
Oh, you're
we
saying-
would like to have 1 or 2 of them already predetermined by their group to be the initial spokesman. So that like they walk through, because we're gonna have what we see here from them, their proposal.
Mhm.
But then we're gonna want someone to walk through it with us, so that we truly, we're gonna read it and we're gonna assume that what we read from it. But we want to make sure that there's 1 or 2 people, because you know how it becomes when I'm telling Mary something, but the person next to me realizes I missed a detail and they're gonna jump in, and then somebody else, and then you lose that train of thought to at least initially present.
But I
There-
really
there
feel
are
like
3
that's whoever's chosen, that's their job.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying, is we're gonna ask the group that's meeting with us to have chosen that and taken care of that before they get here.
So different meetings, it could be different people based on the issues that they've presented, maybe.
I feel
Because
like-
we're
We
gonna,
don't
we're gonna
issue
issue.
which person from their group they choose to have let speak at the
But
beginning.
what if one of the people, or 2 of the people there at any given meeting, they weren't part of the group that submitted the issues we're taking up that night? Because we're going to choose, again, based on commonality, hopefully.
Yeah,
What issues we're gonna take in any
Yeah.
given meeting.
well, if they give us
Right.
3, that we know the most we're gonna talk about is
They
3.
just kind of have listened for the last year.
We could guess.
We probably know what the issues are.
Problem is that's been 1 or 2 groups have been here. We open this up, we're gonna have groups that are gonna be submitting. You have to set up guidelines that will
All right,
take you down the road too.
is this like an application, like?
No,
a Suggestion?
I think it's not an application as much as a declaration by them that these are our top three concerns from this group.
No,
The
no, no.
reality
She's
is,
saying for people to become the advocate.
Yes, okay.
that's
let's-
between them and their group. They're gonna already
We
have
gotta
a,
work through that for a second.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Bill, I know that you wanted to say something there.
Well,
I want to make sure you,
I'm just gonna jump in quickly and jump out. So when you talked about how many electric customers, I was gonna say, let's not lose sight on Edwardsville, we serve water out there.
sure.
There's still within our customer base too, so some representation from Edwardsville will probably be good.
yeah. Well, I
Right,
mean,
but-
it's
but
gonna
we
be who
need
solicits.
people,
Yeah.
You know, who, and that's, so getting back to, it's a very good point, but getting back to,
See, that's how,
I don't want us to determine because I want
Oh.
the folks who are interested in being advocates on behalf of the community to be chosen by
By
the
them.
groups that are interested. But how do we shape that process for them to choose their group?
right, and
I mean,
back
we
to
gotta
what
give them,
Jeff said earlier, I don't want 9 different people at every meet. I want 9 people to follow through on quarterly with us.
and I
That's
want,
my goal,
I agree.
I just, I
And
don't
these
think
are
we build
advocates that
any kind of
serve
rapport.
for a specific period of time, right? As part of
Once we're organized, at least a year. If we have quarterly meetings,
at least a year,
at least a year.
right? Because we need, we want some commitment, I know they want to be committed to it too.
Right.
But I think once we get, familiar with the advocates, we're probably going to get much more familiar with the issues. And I agree with you. I bet we can guess what a
Exactly,
lot of the issues are right now,
Right.
right?
right.
And that's a good thing. But I think the more we have rapport with this group of advocates, right? I think the more that obviously we're gonna, I agree that we all trust each other, but we're gonna get more things done, right?
I just feel like having a core group, the same core group,
Representing that
For
that
at least a year.
group
There to
of-
bring whoever they represent there.
bringing that group of concerns.
And then how they meet is beyond us. That's not
That's right.
that's not our,
So.
and who
yeah.
chooses, that's kind of beyond us too. We'll find somehow a way for someone to choose the right applicants.
It's almost like, okay, because I'm trying to think long sight
Mhm.
of once this process is in place, and let's say 2 years from now, everything's hunky-dory in KCK. And it goes for 6-8 months and there's no issues, all right, no concerns, and then something comes up. We have to have built a process that can easily be picked back up. And started right back up, and it's just like, oh, well, if you want to, my neighbor, decides that they want to do it and everything, and they want to contact, it's like, okay, here's the proviso, this is what needs to be done from your group to get onto the community engagement agenda. And then we know that they're there. It gives us time to kind of circle the wagons and understand, hey, we need to set up a meeting for this and everything. And then they already have like the bylaws or rules. There has to be rules. There's the rules that'll be like, here's the rules of engagement for both sides. There'll be 3 board members there. There'll be, you'll bring 9 of your representatives from your group, up to 9 or 10 of your whatever the number is, up to the max number. Maybe the group only wants to send 2. That's fine.
That's fine.
But, and you'll need to pick one person who, overall speaks for the group so that there still has to be a point of accountability.
And that they will commit to
And
the,
they have to commit to
For-
the
for
long-term
meeting.
solution of this, I'd say it, depending on what the frequency of meetings, no less than a quarter. And I would almost say that it should be at least a 6-month commitment or 6 month or until issues are resolved.
everything
Because
that
things
I,
may get solved sooner, and it's like, we no longer need to meet, so.
Oh,
We've solved them all.
Well, at least the ones with that group that was concerned about
No,
it,
you're right.
because there are gonna be different concerns. This group may not care anything about what that group, and it's like, yeah, we don't have any issues with that, and this other group could be from Rosedale, and this is neighborhood in Rosedale that's having nothing but problems with connectivity, outages and stuff. They have their own issues. They don't care about anything else but that. So,
I'm just trying to figure out, like when Bill said, we got to consider Edwardsville. I'm just trying to figure out how we go about making sure that every part of the county is represented somehow. Because Jeff, you keep talking about groups.
Should we set up districts? Big
Or,
districts?
Well, but
I mean,
the-
like, and I mean,
Okay.
more districts than,
so
Obviously,
you guys
we
are
have-
missing out on, this is, to me, the community engagement, this is a response. This is a response team to issues in our community, not just our regular engagement. Our regular engagement needs to be to me, my regular engagement is I go to neighborhood group meetings. Each of us have to find our own ways to engage with our voters,
right,
residents and constituents and ratepayers in the area they're responsible for. This, to me, was more of a, hey, there are concerns in our community. What is the conduit going to be for those citizens to be able to come through?
and that certainly wouldn't preclude if there are residents in Edwardsville that are having some particular issue with water.
Because they're
Right.
ratepayers.
But that wouldn't preclude them from going to somebody on the community advocacy side of the engagement, right? To say, hey, we're having these issues with Edwardsville with our water. Can you guys bring these forth in the community engagement, process and
And
nothing
actually.
would preclude that.
Actually, somebody from, that group from Edwardsville could just say, hey, we heard about this, we talked to somebody in KCK and they said, hey, all you have to do is just contact the community engagement group. They're a group, so they could submit too, because they are ratepayers. As far as I'm concerned, if they live in KCK, they should have, or that section of Shawnee that's mine. They should have just as much right to engage as
right.
anybody else.
But how do we?
But I looked at this community engagement, maybe I'm misunderstanding what the community engagement committee was supposed to, the basis for that was, we're supposed to take the concerns that people don't believe are being addressed. Because I can tell you that there are neighborhood groups that I go to and I meet, at least once a quarter, I go to their meetings and stuff that if they have issues, there are no issues in that area. If they have issues, they bring them to that meeting knowing I'm going to be
Right.
there, and that's their conduit for getting it. So in,
And I just have like individuals that call me and say, hey, I've got this issue.
yeah, and those are the one-offs that would have came to the podium. But this is more of to me, I thought this was more of hey, these are bigger outlying issues that they feel are at the utility. What can be done to ease the pain from these?
So they're not the issues we've been hearing about? for
But
the
those
last
are the
year?
bigger, that's what I'm saying, is those are the bigger, the one-offs where somebody comes in and says, hey, my meter broke and I was overcharged, or a line broke in my yard. Those are one-offs. You don't need,
Unless the meter is not a one-off.
well, what I'm saying is if they know that one, like, hey, the water line broke by my meter and, I'm disputing, all right, that's a one-off. That's you don't need an entire committee for that one thing. That's just, hey, we have rules and we have guidelines and policies that tell us exactly where responsibility is. We just need to make sure it was followed.
Well, for,
But to me, this was like the group that we have coming. There's, I've heard about 5 different core issues. Like one of them is, and I'm not saying that all of them are resolvable or that we would even choose to pursue because of cost. But, or are they even a good fit for our community? That's part of our responsibility, is to know what's a good fit. But, the ones that are, those are the bigger. Like I said, those are the low hanging fruit that, we need to look at this and see. This could make from what we're understanding from hearing from the residents, is this could make huge impact on quite a few lives in our community. So that's what I thought this, and maybe I have it wrong.
No, I don't think you have it wrong at all. I mean, back in early February, listening to some of the folks who have come in, I started writing notes just as I heard it, right? And to me, sort of the overarching issue that I think we keep hearing is we need to fix some issues that are affecting our most vulnerable customers.
Yes.
That's divided into different categories, right? Could be based on income, could be based on age with a fixed income component.
Which is still income.
Right,
You know,
and could be based on, a medical
Yes.
situation,
That was another one.
right? And so to me, those were the themes that keep coming through. And, there's a lot of different ways to probably address these, but I think what we're gonna have to, we know that some groups have previously provided some specifics to the board. They have.
Mhm.
Right? And I'm not saying don't take those into account because the engagement committee wasn't, maybe we should be taking some into account. I know that we've all spoken,
Yes.
Bill, with you about at least one of them, but I think we need to have a better understanding, this committee does of what do our policies say about X, Y, or Z, right? And let's start there. And if we think that there's a gap in the policy, then maybe that's something we start initiating with Bill and staff about, hey, this is something we've heard. Because I don't think we can walk and chew gum, right? It doesn't mean we have to sit there and, let's wait till everything gets all set in July, right? We all know these things take time. And these folks have been very good about showing up and emailing us, putting things in front of the full board, not just, this committee. So, but to your point, that's sort of how I see this committee, what its purpose is, right?
Mhm. And I like, what you said sparked the idea that, so knowing in advance that we're gonna be covering these three topics, or we'll prioritize, if we're gonna meet for an hour with 10 people, that there is time capacity. So let's say we're gonna start with number one, number two, and if we get to it, number three during this meeting, and knowing in advance what we're gonna be talking about, staff can pull up the policies or the documentation that supports, whatever the topic we're gonna talk about, because it may come down to that. It's like, well, understand here, and have copies for everybody at the table. So that, and they can take theirs back to when they report to their group. And my hope is that everyone who is going to be engaged, every group we engage with, is going to have reporting meetings beyond here so that they can get the feedback back to the community or their community. And we take that and, we provided documentation, and that's when we can walk through it, as a whole and say, maybe, this is a notation, the cold weather rule is a perfect one. That whole wording between above or below a temperature made a complete difference. And having people that are at the table talking in a, normal, brainstorming situation, we're going to more likely see those little glitches and say, okay, you know what? Just by changing the wording on this policy, this would help it. But then at the same time, there are going to be people going to want a policy change, and it may not work to change it. So we just have to
weigh
know
the financial impact.
Yeah, we just have to know, more brains at the table with us to help us see what we don't see.
To collaborate toward resolution.
Yeah.
So will there be a facilitator from outside?
No,
I think that the board is the facilitator.
no, we're the facilitators.
Yeah, I mean, this is an information gathering for us,
That's right.
is what we're doing, is that they know all the things that are happening that are triggering these. We have heard some, but we may not truly understand. They can help us, they can help better paint the picture of what it is, and then working through policies or documentation, and it may not even have anything to do with policies, but working through
Okay, I think,
existing, we find what the future state could be.
no, but I think we need to just start narrowing our focus right now, like. Okay, we're gonna have 10 people.
Yeah,
Are we-
yeah, we're gonna meeting size of 3 board members and 9 or 10, let's say 10 attendees max.
And
You know.
how are we gonna go about getting those 10 people?
Submit the proposal of the top 3 concerns. I think that's what, and I can sit down, let me see, let me look. at
But
the
submit it to
calendar.
To who, Jeff?
Well, I think
I'll send it to you two and Bill,
Oh,
because this is just a committee.
no, but I think outwardly, obviously, we're going to have, I mean, we'll announce this.
We can talk, yeah, we can
I
talk
hear
about it
you,
in
but
board
we're trying
meetings.
to, look, we're just talking right now and trying to get it, to put it into focus.
We're
is what
trying to make
do.
rules.
I
Get the
don't
rules.
disagree with you that it's too broad right now, right? I don't disagree at all. I agree with you.
okay.
But so we gotta get it here. I don't know yet what's the most fair way for the community to choose 10 advocates that meet with us on a regular basis. I just don't know.
It's just like, my worry is, how do you let the community know? We don't have a newspaper. we
No,
don't
but
have-
we can announce that in our board meetings, and you know what?
Yeah, but that's
Fine.
Social media,
No,
right?
no, because it's on, and here's the thing is, yeah, and social medias. But here's the thing is, you don't have a newspaper and everything like that, so it's word of mouth. So to get word of mouth, you have to first start by announcing it, and it'll be told, and this person will tell that person, and that's how things get around Wyandotte County. Unfortunately, that's the only good way that we have.
That's our news
besides-
source.
But you know what?
Well, And I think maybe, just maybe, we should maybe contact like all the NBRs. That might be a good place to start. Do we just say?
I feel like the NBRs have good representation with the BPU already. That's
Yeah.
what I feel like. Honestly, I do. I mean, we obviously.
I think the
said
people they
we
deal with-
Provide grant money, right? We provide grant money to NBRs today, right? Several. We have several of those that come back and report to us every year.
Right,
They have a good, I feel like the groups that are coming to us are not groups that are very well plugged into the NBRs.
Yeah.
but I feel
I'm not
like
saying- I'm not saying
Not
exclude
covered
them.
by 'em, yeah.
there's a lot of people, like in Rosedale, that, that's an NBR, and I'm not on that board any longer, but when I was on the board, there's a lot of people that need help with their utilities.
Mhm.
I mean, that was a discussion frequently.
But see, that's the thing is, so like, do you need to bring someone from every part of the city when okay, the concern is there a way to maximize the savings potential for a set group of customers?
Well, I've been saying,
That is something that,
that's
something as a.
let the church know too. They're out there paying
I
other people's
absolutely think we
bills
should.
as well.
But here's the thing about a subject like that is an obvious subject that what we're gonna bring in is we're gonna bring in representatives that could also, a lot of those are already dealing with that subject. It's us gathering information, take it back to the rest of the board where we can start having work sessions on, is there a way to solve this topic? This topic of, hey, is there a way that we can lower the rates or lower the total bill for a senior on a income of this or below? Is there a feasible and reasonable and legal way to do that? All right, those are the things that we're just gathering the information to bring back to the board, rest of the board, so that we can all sit down as a board and see, is there a way to solve this? It may not be a way. We may find out that,
I'm just
but
worrying about representation.
Mhm.
what,
So NBRs, churches, community groups, right?
Right.
Where else would you draw from? And to your point, we do have to notify this exact type of folks, right? We do.
Right.
Yeah.
Because to Jeff's point, that is how we get the word out that way, right? That's what we do. And those, obviously we'll focus on those. And community groups, I mean, that's going to be
I just want it to
it's gonna be harder.
a fair representation.
I agree with you.
Well, and then that's the thing is,
For well.
so
how
if you're gonna
we
do.
Tell everybody.
So now step back from that and let's imagine this committee of 10. And we know that there's a group that comes here a lot that would like to have all 10 of them, okay? But the reality is, if you're talking about asking MBRs, all these other ones, and let's say that 5 of them say, yeah, we want to be represented in that group. Who, that one group may not want the other ones there. You know, may want all the lion's share of the seats. Because, I mean, it's just reality, human nature. Okay, so we need to make sure that the selection of the group.
I really wasn't meaning like Erin, who is in charge of RDA. I wasn't meaning her, but just her telling the community that she deals with.
Okay, well,
There's somebody.
yeah, the communication is one thing, but that's what I'm saying is that,
Communicating with them, I just thought would open it up to more people. I'm not saying I want somebody from CABA, I want somebody from RDA. That wasn't what I was
Yeah,
saying. I was
okay.
just saying.
because that's what I was,
maybe
I
that's
was
a
like,
way to-
okay, well, now the mechanics of,
To get the word.
assigning
Right,
groups. But yeah,
Like-
just letting people know that we're going to be.
like RDA has a social media presence and a newsletter.
Yeah, well,
And I'd say
I
most
think
of
we
the
have
others
Dave
do.
Melton.
So if we
Heck,
just,
He's got a new person working with him now, so at least he's got another person, so they could find a way to wordsmith the requests and send it out to all the MBRs and neighborhood groups and stuff.
I don't know. how to
Livable
tell
neighborhoods.
churches. I don't know how to,
I feel like we do have a way to tell churches because we do this I mean, really, between the Unified Government BPU, we meet with a segment,
The
you know,
Baptist,
of
the Baptist
the
ministry.
churches all the time.
Yeah.
And, I would try to hit, as many churches as we can throughout Wyandotte County, right? No matter what
right.
and
And Bill, would you suggest at Edwardsville, how to get the word out to Edwardsville?
aren't there churches in Edwardsville?
Through the churches?
And I know the people who may not go to church, like how do we, and maybe through NBRs, right? That's a good way to do that.
Mayor.
There you go.
Or, think of some.
And maybe we can take
Boards or.
David's brain about how, I mean,
Communication, yeah.
about how we do that, right? About how best to, or even, Patrice is out in the community a lot. She may have some ideas as well.
See, and that was gonna be the next committee that I was gonna suggest be formed, but not yet, would be the communication committee. Because that was one of the 5 things that we all as board members, when we did.
And to your point, Jeff, and that's
Our
one thing
strategic
that I hope that the Community Engagement Committee is going to help with.
Yeah.
I hope it's going to help improve effective
I
communication.
think we'll be
From
communicating
the
prior
BPU.
to having a communication committee.
That's right.
But I think that my hope is that from this, as we're bringing things back to the full board and we're setting up work sessions, we're doing worthwhile work for the community. We see the importance of communication, and from the people that are going to be in this room with us, we'll learn other avenues of communicating that we may not have thought about. Because like I said, you don't know what you don't know. If you're going through life with certain expectations and beliefs, those are going to guide your path, but they're also going to build your vision. So it's ability to let other people.
Well, it's
Oh.
like a comment I heard from somebody who stayed for the entire meeting months ago. And she said, oh, I didn't realize blah, blah, blah. So, yeah,
And that's right. And look, I mean, we do because we don't have, a heavy news presence. We don't have a newspaper that's specific and now with, with Mary's passing. I mean, I think that's going to be more and more difficult. Mary did such a good job of covering the BPU. And so we've got to be more creative about that. But I do think that, look, we can have a really big social media reach. And I don't care as much about engagement on social media. I know that's how we
No,
you
they're
know,
announcements.
that's how we all gauge things, right? Is whether or not we had engagement. And every company does that. It's not just BPU, as we all know. But they're announcements. We're just trying to get the information out, right? I'd rather see a scene by,
Reach.
600,000 than I would see, like 14 comments, right? That's what I'd rather see. So we know somebody saw it. I mean, we all as board members have the ability to reshare that information. I don't know if those are serial communications. I'm not commenting on them. I don't know. Angie's not here. We got the nice lawyer tonight. Just kidding. I'm kidding. So, I mean, and that's sort of, I think we've got work to do, right? We've got work on these ground rules. I do think we did some positive things so far tonight. One of which is, I think we're all comfortable establishing the group of advocates at 10,
Mhm.
right? So we can have, this thing. Obviously, always going to have, Bill, member of staff, and we'll work through that component of it. I think the hardest thing we have to do right now is one, figure out how we get the reach out there. We've got to have a cutoff point of this too, right? It's like, look, we can't keep this, election process, if you will, on their side of things open for 6 months, because that doesn't do them any good either.
No, it's not.
And try to ensure as much as we can that it was fair on their side, although that's, the other side of things. So that's not within our control,
Yeah.
but we have to be mindful about that. And then to Mary's point, to further, have a set of rules to narrow the focus, so we can actually be effective. Because that's what we all want. We want to be effective. We want to be responsive to the community, and we want to be effective.
Okay, and I think one thing you didn't say that I thought I heard was quarterly, once we get organized.
I don't know what the frequency would be. I think that the frequency will flow up and down based on the need. The number,
Could be as needed.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah, because
it
may
winds
come
up
to a
being
point you
that,
don't Need to meet because there's no committee,
because we've solved
no
everything.
committee members, you have this list of problems. And you've worked through them all, hopefully. We get to the point where we work through them all and it's like, okay, for right now, everything is running fine. There's no reason to meet if there's no issues. But I think until then, I don't know what the engagement, I was gonna request that we have another one of these meetings on April 19th, and between now and then and more prior to than closer to that date, I will attempt to do my version of like a process flow and rules of engagement, and then you guys can pick it apart. All right, so I'll try to get it out to you. It'll be the next, the third Wednesday. I figure we're on the second meeting of March. Let's just be the second meeting of April, and hopefully, like I said, I'll try to do a process flow and like a rules of engagement for it, and then send it to you guys. And from that, maybe it'll spark and you can just.
Jeff, I just need to clarify one thing with you, that you are seeing the same 10 people. Let's just say we did say we're going to meet quarterly. You're seeing the same 10 people.
I don't know. I think to start with, we can do that. I think that there may have to be a point, because here's my concern would be, I think that they should be able to. Let's say that these 10 people represent all the groups that have this, these three problems we're going to talk about, but there may be problems that get solved that some of these people no longer are concerned to be involved in because their issues have been resolved, but there's other core groups that, I think that you always have to have a set number, and then they could have electives that could flow in and out.
Let's think through that. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Let's think through that and.
Yeah, because
I mean, I'm gonna just
All right.
put
And I
down,
think to
I'm
the
gonna put down like a process.
and I'm like a visual
And then
person.
you guys, you can either rip it apart if you already have
Yeah.
one idea.
That's
and we can Write extra notes and we can determine from it.
No, but
That's on
and
Karen.
to your point, and I would appreciate
People are
that. I
coming.
think Mary would too. But I think that we should try to, before the 19th, all think on what we've spoken about tonight. And, to the extent we need additional input from Bill, we seek that.
Thank you.
But the three of us,
That's helpful.
you know, we can communicate on this, right? We
Yeah,
can
just as
communicate
long as we
amongst
don't go to any
ourselves.
other board member.
That's right.
It can only be the three of us.
That's
Yeah.
right. And we'll include
Yeah.
Angela.
And that's why I say I'm gonna work on this and I'll try to work up like a Word document. I'll build like a process or rules of engagement as kind of like
Could you
I
put in
picture it.
Visio?
What's that?
Could you put it in Visio for me?
Probably not. I'll probably do a Word document
Okay.
or PDF,
Well, no, I'm,
Word document at least.
I really want to process.
Well, yeah, I don't know about a Gantt chart too.
All right. Please go get some pizza.
But
Yes.
yeah, but I'll work on something and then I'll shoot it to both of you and you guys, we can just bounce back ideas.
No, I
and
think
then
that's a good idea. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that we're done with the meeting. We don't have to adjourn.
Our thoughts together and send it to the three of you
Appreciate
too.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would work. Yeah, 'cause- and then we'll,
Have help through to your word.
We're gonna ignore you, Bill. We're ignoring you.
trust me, it'll be you that'll get all, everything that comes from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll come from it. The weatherization in this meeting, this one in this meeting.
It's in this meeting, yes.
All right.
There's a lot of presentation tonight, so we're gonna be.
That's fine.
Bye, Bill.
Want some pizza?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you, though.
So you can.
I'm gonna get ready so I can listen to the next one.
I got real sharp elbows.
Because when we're doing it in this room and broadcasting room, it's transmitting over the speakers in that room,
Yeah.
coming down to you versus just one point source when somebody else is speaking.
Anyway,